Great, but I think live now. So we'll wait 3 more minutes and then start, Swaroop. Sounds good.
Great.
Yeah, sure.
I think we could start, Pallavi.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. This is first in the series that we're doing for Citizen Innovation Lab, which is a joint venture by Omidyar Network and CII Co. So these dialogue series talk more about the sectors, legal tech, property rights tech, and civic tech. And this session specially talks about the legal tech. Before I hand over the stage to Shailaja, who is going to moderate this session, Shailaja works as a part of Insights team at CII Eco, and she is majorly responsible for doing all the landscape studies as far as the sectors are concerned, and also responsible for building and creating sector intelligence, especially aligned to the programs that we do at CII Eco. Has been a part of the organization since 2018 with special interest in financial sector. And for this space, with this project, she's especially looking at the legal tech. And that's the reason she's here with all her understanding that she's built over this period of time with our panelists, entrepreneurs, and also Omidyar team. And over to you, Shailaja, to take this discussion ahead on Indian judiciary from an entrepreneur's lens. So over to you, Shailaja.
Thank you, Pallavi, for a wonderful introduction. Welcome, everyone. We hope you'll walk away with a better understanding of legal tech as a sector after this session today. Without further ado, let me just start by introducing our panelists for today. First of all, we have Tariq from Media Network India, who also are partners on Citizen Innovation Lab. Tariq, in his role at ONI, is responsible for sourcing, evaluating, and managing investments in governance and citizen engagement. Specifically, has also been looking at legal tech sector recently and joins us today not just as a sector expert but also as an investor. Welcome, Tariq.
Thanks, Shailaja.
Next, we have Kirtana from Agami, India. Kirtana is a curator at Agami and a lawyer by education, a researcher at heart. In her last 3 years at Agami, Kirtana has been following the legal tech ecosystem very closely and is responsible for their online dispute resolution initiative as well as Agami network. Welcome, Kirtana.
Thank you, Shailaja.
And last but not the least, we have Amin, who is one of the co-founders at Resolve 360, a leading legal tech platform enlisted by Department of Justice, Government of India, specializing in resolving commercial disputes online via arbitration and mediation. Welcome, Amin.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shailaja, for having me.
Thank you all the panelists for being here, and let's get right into it. My first question is to Tariq. As you know, program partners, as a person who has been looking at this sector, why is it important to recognize legal tech as an emerging sector, and why now?
Yeah, and thanks, Shailaja, for that question. I think there are, the problems related to the justice system has been around for as long as we can remember, right? So those problems around whether it's dispute resolution, access to affordable legal services, none of that has changed. But what has changed is there are sort of three factors that have come in over the last maybe 5-6 years. I think the first thing is the frontier technology related to whether it's artificial intelligence, natural language processing. I think the advances there enable you to actually process data and really drive down the unit costs of delivering legal services. I think behind it is the fact that, look, thought one way, the justice system, especially the dispute resolution and the legal services aspect, is a data clearing house, right? A large number of steps, whether it's registering a grievance, looking up basic legal information, analyzing the dispute to actually provide sort of legal advice, is all about discovering, exchanging, benchmarking data. So, what frontier technology has really done is sort of really ramped up the ability to really process data and actually give customized legal advice, right? So that's one thing. So now instead, what only a human could do now, these frontier technology will enable computers to do. So I think that's one thing, and that's obviously an ongoing journey, and it'll just keep getting better as we go forward. The second one, I think more importantly, is a burgeoning sort of ecosystem, right? There are about 400 odd legal tech startups, right? Like at some level, for people not aware about the sector, this might sound like something that's slightly obscure, but it really isn't, right? There are about a large number of startups servicing very, very different sort of problems within the justice system. We have someone like Amin, who's actually working on the dispute resolution front, but there are startups whether on providing legal services or providing more targeted contract management products. So there's a broad set of players that are coming into the sector, and initiatives such as CIL or Agami has been really sort of pivotal in sort of attracting talent and folks into the sector. And the interesting thing is, it's not just legal professionals that are coming in, right? It's also engineers, designers, business graduates. So it's important to actually get a diverse pool of talent, and I think that's where we need to sort of invest a lot of time in sort of helping them think through their solution and sort of scaling their platforms. I think the third part, I think most recently, I think if you look at justice is a heavily regulated space. It's got heavy state involvement. But what's been exciting to see is the openness of innovation from within the system, right? And if you look at the work that Niti Aayog has been doing on online dispute resolution over the last a year or so, right? And I think they've been really playing a leadership role. Or even the interest and excitement that the higher judiciary, the Supreme Court, has shown with some of the tech tools that they've sort of adopted as a part of the AI committee. I think these are three factors, right? Really good change makers coming in, good entrepreneurs coming in. That's one. Frontier technology really pushing the envelope. And third is really open decision makers, policy makers, open to this idea. So I think that's why we are almost at the cusp of something very exciting. Yeah.
No, right, absolutely makes sense. And if we focus on the first two aspects, the technology and the entrepreneurs coming in, Ketana, you've done some fantastic work at Agami, working with entrepreneurs and working on data. And a few things that Tariq has already touched upon, but if you could highlight some of, the important areas where legal tech startups have been able to create impact so far.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Shailaja, and thank you for setting that up so well, Tariq. I think, since the 2018 Agami Prize, and we've had 2 editions of Agami Prize, we've seen how the legal industry as a whole has transformed just over 2 years, right? So I can give you like 2-3 examples of where there's been solid impact and there's also potential. One is using technology to resolve disputes, right? For dispute resolution. So one, over the last year, we've seen Lok Adalats across many states adopt technology and technology platforms to resolve thousands of disputes, settling crores worth of disputes as well. And this is not just in urban cities or like tier 2 cities, but also in villages and smaller districts that we've identified ways to actually apply technology and resolve disputes. Within that, there's also the private ODR space itself that has been thriving over the last 1 year, 2 years. In fact, we have over 15 ODR startups right now. 75 plus enterprises have adopted ODR. So the B2B ODR market is really thriving in that sense. And we are also seeing, as Tariq again mentioned, the Supreme Court E-Court Committee, right? Their vision doc for phase 3 of E-Courts. They've also, again, they're looking at how do we integrate private solutions to also resolve disputes and to work in conjunction with the judiciary itself. So that is one whole area itself, which is applying technology for dispute resolution as a whole. Then the case management and practice management system. So we have initiatives like, say, ProVakil that basically look at your end-to-end process, because your data is all over, and to like track the journey of a case to see what's happening where. And while the enterprises have so far adopted, now we're also seeing interest from the judiciary and the legal services authority to adopt these practices again for more efficient management of their data and systems. Then the contract management and contract automation and management workflows, again, where the enterprises have taken the lead in many ways. And we have organizations like Legality, Spot Draft, and I think Vault Edge and a few more startups as well in this space who've created solutions for the enterprise market, and even the judiciary and the government has started to see the need to adopt them for their own internal management. So these are all the areas that have grown and are growing. And I think that even the AI-led legal research, legal analytics, so you have Legal Mind, you have Legit Quest, and you have many other organizations like that are looking at AI and data-led legal research, legal analytics that will help case summarization, management, translation, etc. So yeah, I think that these are all the areas where there's been a massive dent, and we're also going to see an increase in the space.
Right. And we'll come back to, the future scope of some of these interventions, but you've very briefly highlighted very interesting areas, but something that has stood out in your answer as well as Tariq's is the online dispute resolution part, with not just entrepreneurs, but also the judiciary, promoting it in the last few years. So Aman, my next question obviously is to you. Someone who has created a solution in this space, what motivated you to do so, to create a legal tech solution to start with? And also as an entrepreneur, if you could highlight some areas where startups can come in, solve major citizen challenges.
Yeah.
No. Thank you for that question, because it always gets me excited when I talk about what motivated us to start this. Because it takes me back to those days when there was no answer. We were just trying to figure out. We were trying to connect the dots. Ensure that the pieces fit in that puzzle. So this was actually in. If I talk about our story, it's quite interesting. So it was in, I think, late 2016 when Bhavin, Namita, and I. So Bhavin and Namita are my co-founders, and all three of us came together and we were ideating on what do we really want to do. So while we didn't have an answer, a direct answer at that time, what is it that we want to do? I think one thing which all three of us were sure of is to build something which is a commercially successful business enterprise, but with social impact at the core of it. So that was something, I think, which all three of us, it was our calling, and we were on the same page for that. And while all of this was going on, so while we were on our drawing board, we were chalking out various ideas, plans. Simultaneously, we were facing, or we were experiencing the hardships of litigation, courts in our own personal and professional journeys. And this was happening while we were ideating. So what really happened was that there were matters which were going on for decades together, and yet we were uncertain if within the next few years we would get the result. And the trigger point for us to get fixated that yes, we want to dive deeper into this problem was one of Bhavin's father's matter, which was going on for almost 3 decades, and it was going on in the Supreme Court. It got settled out of court. So after 30 years of that long drawn journey, it got settled, and that rung some bell in our ears, and we were stunned because one of the, and I would love to quote the judges who was a part of this particular matter, because he literally called upon Bhavin and he told him that, son, your father started the litigation and your son will have to conclude it. And that stunned us even more, because coming from the Supreme Court judge and after going through the entire journey, we realized that we constantly were asking that question to ourselves, that is it all worth it? And the answer was definitely a no. So that's where we realized that yes, this is a problem which is massive. There are so many people. We look at the numbers. I mean, at that time I think it was 3.5 crore cases. Today, unfortunately, because of COVID and what all has happened, it's been 4.5 crore cases which are pending. So that number has only increased. And that's where we realized the magnitude of the problem which we could solve. So in 2017 is when we actually quit our jobs. We decided to put in some more time, more effort into understanding the problem deeply, because we just saw that within our social circles, within our families, that yes, this is a problem that exists. But as entrepreneurs, we have to ensure that we test the hypothesis in the most fair manner. And that's where we were on our foot. So we were, I think, for 2 to 3 months, we were going from one court to another. So we are based in Mumbai, and we started from the Bombay High Court. We went to another court. So we created an in-depth survey just to understand what is the problem. Why is it that people are yet in courts for so long after knowing that it takes that long for them to resolve the issues? And can technology aid a better solution? So to understand the mindset of people, it was, so we didn't only kept it restricted to litigants, but we also went to business houses. We went to a few professionals. We in fact even went to a few housewives of people who were, I mean, litigating, because it has daunting effects even on the family. It's not just their own personal matter. It's a matter where everyone gets affected. And that's where I think we found that the problem is massive. Yes, there is a desperate need for the solution. So a couple of things which I would like to put it up. So I think 73% of people, so we interviewed over 1,000 people in those 2 to 3 months, and 73% of the people were desperately looking out for an alternative. They were looking out for a better solution. But on the other hand, at least 45% of the people didn't even know that there is something like mediation or arbitration that existed. So that's where we realized that there's a huge gap, even in terms of literacy. And many of them were even from the law background. So they were aware of the terms, but how do you go about it and how do you ensure that it is used in the most effective manner? I think there was no answer right there. So that's where we began our journey. We built a platform. We did test, few cases. We were trying to understand what works best. And we kept improving. So from 2017, 18, 19, 20, we kept improving. Today, when we look back and the kind of platform that we have, the automation, that templatization that we've done, and when we started in 2017, I mean, we've come a long way. But I think interesting aspects which really touched us was the fact that when we were in the courts for 2 to 3 months, we were seeing people coming for more than 20 to 25 years, really 85, 90-year-old people who were not even able to walk properly, but they were in the courts with that hope that yes, they would get justice and one day the court would conclude that matter. But many of these matters were trivial. They were easily resolvable if they would have probably, reached out to somebody who could be a neutral and who could help them out. So that's how we got motivated. We also saw whether we have the skill set. So that's another important aspect. So Bhavin and Amita both are lawyers and chartered accountants. I come from the insurance and management background. So we found that we are a good fit when it comes to even the skill set, the knowledge, and the ability to, transform this into a scalable business model. So yes, that's how our journey began, and that motivated us to start this sort of a online dispute resolution platform back then. Other areas, I think there are no dearth of opportunities now, and especially the positive side of COVID-19 and what it has done is that, as Tariq and Kirtana both mentioned, that it has really made people more receptive and open to new ideas. Now we have think tanks like Niti Aayog, impact investors like Omid Dayar, and so many others who are ensuring that there's a dialogue between various stakeholders. So I think it's the best time right now for any legal tech entrepreneur to kickstart their journey. And the problems, I mean, there are a list of them which are existing, and just a couple of them which I would like to highlight, because this is something that we have seen in our journey, and even we are trying to figure out if there is a better solution for it. So let's take an example, right? Let's say that today, if any company who's invoking arbitration and if they are getting those awards in their hand, now what we are doing is we're solving a part of the problem. Let's say 70% of the problem is solved by ensuring that that award or that conciliated settlement agreement is resolved or is in their hands within 45 to 50 working days. But what after that? Now, execution is another battle altogether. And that's where today no solution exists. But what if there could be a solution in that, So if there are young entrepreneurs, startups who are thinking of various problems or identifying problem, I think this is a ready market. There is a desperate need for a solution like this. And while we are constantly thinking, evaluating on how do we ensure that we build something around it, I think one important way to succeed is through collaboration. So if somebody is having a niche and somebody is having a solution, instead of us reinventing the wheel and doing something of our own, we can always collaborate. So that's a important aspect, important area where people can put their attention to. Another important aspect is how do you ensure that the tracing of assets is done, right? Today, it is completely offline. People have to rely on institutions or people who are on field trying to figure out what are these ways of finding assets of a particular person if they would want to go for enforcement. So that's again a major challenge. And I feel using technology and with the various tools that are available today, it can easily be solvable. So that's something that, again, is a ready market, because we are working with a lot of lending companies today in the B2B space, and we've realized that that's another challenge which they are facing, and they're constantly ideating and talking about this with us, that what if this solution is also there? It could be a complete 100% package. So yeah, I mean, these are a few of the sectors, and I think Kirtana already mentioned all other sectors, whether it's the contract lifecycle management, companies like Legality and Spot Draft. They are also ensuring that e-signing and e-stamping facilities are available. So already the solutions are there, but yes, these are the various sectors.
Well, thank you, Aman, for sharing that. Definitely motivating start that you've had into it. And like Tariq, you were mentioning before, there's over 400 odd startups, but it still to a lot of people sounds like a nascent sector. But it's not, right? It's not really, because you have a number of startups. Even when we look at investment trends, at least since 2016, we've seen investments north of $1 million, with 2020 pulling in $6 million worth of US dollars worth of investment. So from an investor's point of view, what are the things that a startup founder, a young entrepreneur needs to keep in mind when they're trying to build solutions for legal tech?
Yeah, thanks, Shailaja. I think there are a couple of points that even Aman mentioned where I would sort of pick up from, right? I mean, what he mentioned, it's a bit like a candy store of problems. Everywhere you look, there are problems, right? But the important thing is to start sharpening that problem very, very early, right? Like, and don't try and solve the world, right? Like, be very, very sharp, have a very sharp target segment, right? Like, startups should be clear about which customers, which segments they're going after, right? Like, each segment has its own nuances, at least, and it's very hard to build product lines that that end up solving for everything, right? I mean, let me take an example. I mean, because we've got Aman here, let's think of ODR, right? Like, sure. I mean, an ODR startup could come and say, I will resolve disputes for India, right? That could be the problem statement. But I mean, there are like hundreds of dispute categories, ticket sizes. That's not a sensible thing, right? Like, so you have to sit down and say, look, what are your ticket sizes? What dispute categories? What customers? What sort of industry? Is it just BFSI? Is it e-commerce? Really, really drill down into the segment that you will go after first. Depending on your traction there, you can obviously, I mean, move to different segments and otherwise. And the thing is, it's too nuanced, right? Like, because it's very different to solve, let's say, help Flipkart solve a dispute around a particular service that they've given versus, let's say, a property dispute somewhere, right? Or a B2B dispute. So really drill down to that, build expertise, nuance in that area, and then start to build. And there's enough of a market size for disputes to actually, you don't have to worry about what if other startups come in but it's very important to start with a very sharp problem framing, right? Of course, at the same time, don't be so niche that it becomes a too small a market size as well. So it's important to identify that. The second, again, what Aman was talking about more in terms of the survey they did, etc. I think one thing, I think we all get enamored by by keywords like AI, NLP, that, this, and the other. But at the end of the day, look, the winners will have deep customer insight that nobody else will have, right? Like, and that's where you need to build on, right? Things like, so really focus on understanding the problem. What is the problem? Why does it exist? What are the incentives at play, right? Like, why on earth has this not been solved till now, right? Like, what has been tried, what's failed, and then how much time and money does the customer at the end of the day like currently spend, right? So I think that's what differentiates good entrepreneurs from others. Just it's almost like they know what happens on a daily basis in the lives of their customers, right? I think that's a big difference. And once you have that nuances, you'll always be able to pivot your product in different ways, figure out how to convince entrepreneurs, but be so good at when it comes to understanding your customer. Especially in a sector like legal tech, because one of the biggest problems in the space is that we know the outcomes at almost a symptoms level, right? Like, but it's very hard to decipher what happens internally, and it's such a complex system. So just going deeper and deeper about why this exists, understanding the history of solutions, I think that's important. And I think for investors, it gives confidence that this person knows, or this entrepreneur knows the sector inside out. The third piece is, this is a new, at some level, it's if you look at the broader history, right, the sector has probably come up in the last 5-6 years, especially in India, right? And these practices, current practices, have been going on for maybe 20, 30, 40 years, right? And they will always be status quo bias, right? Like, and it's going to be hard to shift practices because there it's something that they've been doing for 40 odd years. It's not been disrupted at all, right? Like, and hopefully things start to change over the next few years. But fundamentally, right now, I think what startups need to do is to really lower the barriers to experimentation piloting, right? Can I give you one case to resolve a dispute? Can I give you 5, maybe 10? Can you get me a lawyer for this small category of dispute? Just get them to taste and understand what it's like to really use your product, right? Like, so really lower the barriers, like make it easier to pilot, maybe do industry partnerships. So just do everything that makes it very, very easy for your customer to just try it out. I mean, after he or she sort of tries it out, and if it works well and good, they come to you for more, give you more business. But the first trial period, I'm sure Aman will throw more light on this. Is where the tricky part is, right? And yeah, and the last thing is, I think in terms of entrepreneurs, I think you need to find people who are deeply committed to the space, because it's not going to be an easy journey, right? There's money to be made and impact to be had, no doubt about it. But I mean, you have to stick it out and almost create the space, right? You have to be not just your own startup, but also actively evangelize the legal tech space and be in there for the long run. I think those are 3-4 things that any sort of entrepreneur looking to sort of enter the space should think about.
Absolutely, very valid pointers. And speaking of, not being easy, Kirtana, in your experience in working with startups, what have you come across as some of the challenges that startups face over the course of their journey?
I think I could club these challenges into 4, right?
Sure.
One is there is generally a high entry barrier for innovation in the justice sector right now. We don't have readily available data and open public technology tools that we can readily use for the sector as well. And data, we've had an interesting relationship with it, I think. For a while now, the judiciary had, say, CAPTCHA and other things, for us to be able to access the data. So while it was publicly available, it was also not fully available, right? Like, they didn't want us to use it as freely. But at the same time now, over the last few months, again, I think probably because of the pandemic and the impact of COVID and how we are seeing technology to enable lives, Supreme Court did say that they will open up APIs. So maybe our relationship with data is changing. At Agami, we've been working on our Data for Justice and OpenAI initiative also to open up as much data as possible. So our relationship with data is changing, but I think that one is generally the high barrier for entry because of lack of data and technology, I would say. Second is, law schools have always been a very separate entity by themselves. For a few years now, unlike in the US and Europe, where you see, like, say, data law schools, tech schools, like everyone interact and work with each other and grow and learn from each other. That sort of isolation has probably actually impacted the legal sector for innovation, right? So we don't see a lot of people interact and learn from each other in a very fluid manner. So that's the second challenge, I think. Third is, and again, what Tariq also was referring to, the market sizes. Maybe for some solutions, the market sizes are small, and maybe the solution to that is also to be global from the outset, right? And not have only India as a market in specific. And the fourth one is perceived regulatory risk. There is a perception that the judiciary or the government could at any time come and undo the work that we've done so far. And so there is a sense of wariness associated. But again, like we discussed today, there has been a lot of movement, particularly from the government and judiciary side, and a lot of adoption of new innovation and challenges. And they're in fact welcoming more innovators and change makers into the system to also work with them. So I don't think that, I hope that it's not even a challenge that we perceive in a couple of years from now, but that I think that bias and that fear still exists though a little bit. So that's my 4, I think.
No, I mean, great summarization. And Thank you for, categorizing them so well for us also. Having looked at some of the challenges, I also want to talk about some of the positive aspects. And Aman, if I may go to you next, what have been some of the major milestones for you as an entrepreneur where you felt that you were able to create a noticeable impact?
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, it's been a short journey so far. We know we have a long way to go, but yes, there have been a few milestones which make us believe that yes, what we are doing is something which is correct and we are on the right track. And very early on, actually, to begin with, in our journey, we saw that impact and we saw the magnitude of the problem that we are here to solve. And if I just cite that example, so while we were in the process of building our platform, this was in 2017, we actually came across a litigant who was a house helper, and she lost her husband in a car accident over, I think, in 2012. So for 5 to 5.5 years, the matter was going on in the motor accident claims tribunal, and typically it takes good 8 to 10 years for that matter to be resolved. And for what? For getting the compensation that she deserved, because it goes to the tribunal. That's where the amount of compensation is decided by the court, and that's how the insurance company then transfers the money. Now this lady, she had no hope. She had no idea of how to go about it. Somehow, somebody who we had spoken to while we were taking our surveys connected that lady to us. And while we were speaking with her, we realized, so I come from the insurance background, and somehow we were able to connect with the right people in the insurance company. And within 30 days, we were able to actually resolve that dispute. And it wasn't even through a professional mediator. It was us who was literally mediating. It was us, which was, I mean, we provided that platform offline, if I would put it that way, where the facilitation happened, the negotiation happened, and that lady at the end of the 40th day, she had 10 lakh rupees in her account, which was really big for her because she was unable to survive. She was actually taking loans from people to raise her 3 children. And suddenly the bread earner, of the family just passed away because of an accident. And that moment when she actually came and she had tears in her eyes, and I yet get jitters when I speak about this, because I think that gets us back to our roots, that yes, this is the problem that we are solving. And she at that moment literally told us that you have saved my life, and I don't know how to repay, how to showcase my gratitude, but that's where we realize the impact that this could have. Like if we just scale this problem to so many others who are facing this, and like, I mean, I feel fortunate, and I'm sure all of us are, that we can, if we ever get embroiled in a dispute like this, probably we can sail through for a few years to ensure that yes, we'll be able to figure a way out. But there are so many like these who have no way out, and unfortunately they've even met a few lawyers in their journey who are not showing the right way, and who were there just to probably get the fees and not even show their faces for years. So while the platform was getting built, we took this as a use case, and we actually resolved a lot many. So there were 3 other insurance companies that came up, and they said that yes, we would like to do this, and there were certain matters which they were willing to settle, and we did that all offline. So that was one of the first milestones where we saw that while technology can scale this up and ensure that it can be done in a much more effective manner, we didn't want to wait till the platform was ready and then help that person. Maybe we could have done it then and there. So that was, one of the milestones which I yet feel it's very close to our heart. While we've had a few more in the last 4 years. To talk about another one, I think in 2018 when we got recognized by the Ministry of Law and Justice, I think that was a very, very, very nice moment for us, because to get that sort of credible institute to back you, and to have you have your name in that list of all the other institutions which are running for the last 20 to 25 years. Some of them who, we've looked up to because they've done some great work in the ADR space. So to be out there, I think that was another great milestone. Then a couple of others which I would very quickly talk about is in 2020. Again, I've been extremely, I've told this to many people that the way the courts have adapted to technology post-COVID, I think it's commendable. And it is something that we have beaten various other developed countries in the way that we have taken up technology and gone ahead with things. And the transition time was also not too much, but yet we've been able to adapt that. So in 2020, Bombay High Court actually empaneled us. We are the only ODR institute to get empaneled by a High Court, where now the courts have started referring matters to us. So whether it's for court annex mediations or pre-institution mediation, the latest amendment in the Commercial Courts Act, where they made it mandatory to ensure for any commercial dispute to get to try an out-of-court mechanism before it is instituted in the court. So that was again a very, it was an aha moment for us because our office is just 5 minutes away from Bombay High Court. We've gone there so many times to pitch something like this and to ensure that we get their time, and they've been extremely kind and courteous to us. And then of course with this sort of a situation which nobody expected, we were getting that sort of a caseload from them, and I think it's going forward, it's going to only increase. So that's another great milestone that we had. And now the last, if I speak about the enterprise user, so we are very focused on the B2B space. So as Kirtana mentioned that yes, there are a lot of enterprises which have shown their faith, shown their trust in an ODR mechanism. We are working with a few banks, NBFCs, B2B packaging companies, logistics companies. There are startups which are having contractual or money recovery disputes. So these are the kind of companies that we are already working with. And one improvement or a couple of improvements that we've seen from offline to online. So typically, let's take an example. Let's say if it was a lending company, and if, for the small to mid-value loan disputes, the average percentage where the participation is there from the other party. So let's say if the company is sending notices for invoking arbitration, or if they are sending an invitation for a conciliation camp, the percentage used to vary from 2 to 3% in an offline setting. In our case, we saw that rise up to 33%. So that shows that, and many of them were very hesitant earlier on because they thought, it's very difficult to fathom that you can resolve dispute via, emails and WhatsApp, and is it really possible? But when they saw that when the percentage increase in the participation, what really happened was that even the borrowers who were probably defaulting, and some of them would be willful, some of them would be genuinely having some of the other issues, they got a chance to put forth their side of the story. So in a way, we were able to provide that level playing field, which at the moment was not there because everything happens offline, and for somebody to travel from one place to another just for an arbitration hearing, it's next to impossible. You cannot expect them to come. But with this sort of an approach, we also saw extreme increase in the number of settlements too. So what used to be in the range of 5 to 8% earlier, we are now seeing 18 to 20% of the matters are getting settled, because again, the parties are getting the opportunity to speak up, and they are getting that opportunity to put forth their offers in front of the companies and from the comfort of their homes. So that's where we realized that yes, an online platform can add so much value to both the enterprise user as well as the other party, the customers of the enterprise users. So going forward, of course, we really want to ensure that if from a 180 days, if we've been able to reduce the timeline to 30 to 45 days, going forward, how do we use more of technology with more data that is available to reduce this timeline further? So I think that's where we are looking at. That's the vision that we have, and hopefully, yes, we'll be able to get there soon.
No, thank you for sharing that and also reminding us that at the core, it is the citizens' challenges that we are trying to solve, and that is the impact that we're trying to create. If I may stay with you, Aman, before going to the next question, what have been some of the major learnings for you as an entrepreneur that you would want to share with the upcoming entrepreneurs? Because that's what we're trying to do here with CIL. So, what would you want to, share with the upcoming entrepreneurs?
Yes. So I think 2 cents from our experiences again. I think it is extremely important to choose the right problem, the problem that you are passionate about. Because as we've already discussed, there are no dearth of opportunities that exist. I mean, there are so many issues that are already there, but you really need to be close to that problem. Now, either we were lucky, I'm saying we are lucky now, but at that time, probably we wouldn't be saying that we experienced the hardships, but we were lucky when we faced that upfront, when we got the first hand experience of how things work. We were able to devise a better solution. So either you're a victim of that problem, or you get closer to the victims of those problems, or of that problem that you're willing to solve. So that is extremely important. You really need to be passionate. And why? Only for the reason that I think we all should be aware that yes, things may move a little slowly when it comes to the legal industry. We've seen that the legal industry has been a little resistant towards having technology being involved. So it has been at a nascent stage from that aspect. Although Tariq mentioned that there are already 400 legal tech startups which are in different domains which are working, but it is yet at a nascent stage. So there could be certain issues, there could be certain blockages which would come in, but only if you are willing to really solve that problem, you would be sticking in. So that perseverance would come in naturally only when you are passionate about that problem. So that's the first learning that I would like to speak about. Second one, I think this is something that has benefited the most. It is to invest in having right mentors, the right advisors, because it is so very important, especially in this industry. And if you have at least one of them or couple of them from the legal industry, nothing like it, because that will help you navigate through the nuances that come with a legal tech startup. You always have to ensure, you need to, I always tell people that you need to find a right balance between thinking out of the box and yet thinking within the box in the legal tech sector, because there are these boundaries that if you cross, it may have certain implications, because again, everything is governed by regulations, laws. So you have to find that right balance. And we've been extremely fortunate to have such great mentors. We've had setbacks. It's not that we've had some major setbacks. One of the companies had actually committed to us that they would want to work with us. We built an entire platform for them. We were very excited, but towards the end, something happened, and it just got, we felt that, this was a big letdown for us, but that didn't stop us, because first we were passionate about the problem. We realized that this is just one fish in the pond. I mean, there are so many other such companies which are already there who would like to have this sort of a solution. So again, having good mentors really helps in navigating that way in a peaceful manner. You don't take decisions hastily. So that's another learning that I would like to share. And I think one important, I think this is common across sectors. It's not only in legal tech, but yes, you are going to find a lot of naysayers. You are going to get those because if you're doing something new, you're solving a problem that has no solution at the moment. There will be people who are veterans in that field, who you have probably even looked up to, who would say that this would not work. But not take this up as upon your ego, or as a thing that, oh, maybe we are not in the right direction. I think that's where you really need to take it up your stride, and that's where your why becomes so important. So again, it comes back to the first aspect of the problem that you're solving. If that is something that you are extremely passionate about, somewhere somehow you find a way out. So yeah, I mean, these are a few of my learnings.
No, thank you for sharing those and keeping it, realistic in terms of expectations for those who are coming in. As we near the end of the panel, we'll quickly take a couple of questions about what the future of legal tech looks like. But if any members from the audience have any questions, please feel free to add them to the Q&A or chat, and we'll take them up at the end of the session. Kirtana, question to you is, how do you see the legal tech space evolving in the next 2 years and maybe a little further down in the next, say, 5 years?
Okay. I think in the last 2 years, we've seen it change so much that I'm really looking forward to what the next 2 and 5 have to bring. Feeding off from one of the challenges that I said as well, right? I think that over the next 2 and 5 years, we're going to see a reduced barrier to innovation overall, right? We will see more India-trained NLP solutions, which is also what Tariq was referring to right at the beginning, right? I mean, we are at we're at a particular inflection point right now. Solutions do require large amounts of data. We do need open public goods. And I think that there are people and collaborations focusing on that right now at the ecosystem level, so that life and innovation and barriers reduce for the entrepreneurs and change makers themselves. So the Data for Justice initiative, for instance, is about opening up data. The Open Nyaya initiative by Agami is looking at open legal AI tools and NLP benchmarks for the entire industry. So overall, I think that it'll look good over the next 2 and 5 years. More specifically, though, I think in 2 years' time, we'll see a lot more improvement and areas of legal research and legal analytics, more India-driven global players in these spaces. And also what Aman was just referring to, right? Like, so far we've seen B2B in the dispute resolution space. I think maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll also see a lot of consumer-led dispute resolution, right? So we haven't seen a lot of B2C dispute ODR pickup in that sense, or we haven't seen a lot of dispute resolution solutions from a consumer perspective. So I think that we'll start seeing innovation there. And over 5 years, I think that we're going to see a leap in AI, I believe. You can imagine you're drafting a contract, and then there's at every clause, there's a pop-up that says, oh, Supreme Court in this case said this, or the High Court in this case said this, right? So you're going to see a lot of flagging and concerns popping up while you're drafting your contracts, live translations, interoperability and connection to various databases, while also accounting for data concerns, right? So both go in parallel, but there's going to be a lot of growth there. And so far, a lot of legal tech solutions have more been addressed to urban India. I think that over the next 5 years, we're going to see them actually even say solutions for translation into various languages. Imagine someone in a village or a district, like a community justice maker, right? Being able to use an app that helps them understand what are the schemes that people in my community are eligible for. Or if someone is having a matrimonial dispute, being able to immediately understand what the relief provisions are and what the process is. Similarly with property. So being able, innovation and empowering people on the ground, literally at the rural and district level, is also where a lot of future lies. So I think that may take for 5 years, because a lot of AI-led tools will come in, and legal translation, Q&A in natural language processing and everything. So I think that's where we'll see the future.
Right. And what I get from it is, obviously technology is the way to scale the solution while keeping, again, citizens at the core of these solutions.
Yeah.
Something that we briefly touched upon, that Aman talked about it, the shift that has happened in 2020, Tariq, the acceptance of legal tech solutions, how has that evolved in a post-pandemic world? And equally importantly, how can startups leverage this shift?
Great. No, I think this is an extremely quotable quote by Richard Susskind, right? Like he talks about how the pandemic was a massive unscheduled pilot for legal tech and justice tech all across the world, right? Like a sector, and especially when it comes to courts, who really had to adopt technology, was almost overnight forced to start listening to cases online, resolving disputes online. It was a big sort of shift, right? I think, and I think that's sort of been reflected in all the companies and startups that I've been speaking to in India, right? I think previously, let's say if a bank wanted to think of ODR but did not pick up ODR, now I mean they don't really do much of an option, right? So they almost have to force. And what's also been interesting, and one of the questions in my head was, okay, look, will this end once the pandemic ends, right? Like, will they all go back to where it was? And now it's just like a stopgap solution with their hands are tied. But that's not true. And that's a question that I've asked to numerous sort of end customers, right? As a part of diligence calls, as a part of just generally learning about the sector. And every single one of them said, look, okay, oh my God, like I got into this because of certain circumstances, but hey, this is so much more easier for me, right? I've been able to track my disputes. I've been able to get a high level view of how things are going. And their thing is that I'm never going back to a pre-pandemic way of doing legal activities, right? So that's one. I mean, thankfully that's the case, right? I think really in the next 12 months or so, or the next 6 months or so, is still that period, right, where you can actually go out and say, look, go to customers and say, look, you don't have a solution right now. Just give it a try, see what happens, right? I think it's important for startups to take advantage of this period to go out and at least build up initial traction, because as bad as the pandemic is, this is just like for some of these other sectors, there's a bit of a golden opportunity, right? Like,
Right.
Because it sort of cuts through that status quo sort of bias that the sector definitely has, and all of us have at some level, right? I think the other is also, I suppose, one of the barriers to adoption is like at the end of the sector as a whole is also fairly new, right? For any customer, I think it's important to place your product and service in the broader ecosystem of what legal tech is, right? Talk about and as you sort of think of sales pitches, think about the sector as a whole, right? And how people are becoming solving for different parts of their sort of legal processes through different products. And I think that adds credibility to the space, and therefore to your sales pitch, and therefore to higher adoption, right? I think that's the only thing I'll say. Like, try and use the next 12 months or so, and to really lower barriers to sort of trying out your product. And I think once you've got that critical mass, let's say in any industry, you've got the top 5 players working for you, it'll just feed on itself. And I think it's already happening. I don't think it's new. I think people have taken advantage of it, despite, like all of us, startup founders have also found it difficult, right? Over the last 12 to 18 months. Despite that, they've gone out and seen this often as an opportunity, and taken advantage of it. Yeah.
No, that makes complete sense. Before we move on to the Q&A, I think I'll quickly just summarize what we have discussed here today. Starting with the opportunities areas, be it ODR, be it contract management solutions, be it more citizen-centric solutions. I think all of those seem like viable opportunity areas for startups, at least in the near future. We've talked about challenges that startups face and what they can do to navigate this space in terms of, figuring out their target segment, figuring out the market size, understanding the problem and the customer both. And also, very importantly, like we've just touched back on, is lowering the barriers to experimentation towards their products. And also, Aman shared, the learnings about find out why you want to solve for this, why is this important to you, find the correct mentors, how important that is, and also just across the sectors, just ignore the naysayers and stay on your path and persevere and go for it. So yeah, I think we'll take a few questions. One question I can see here is, What role does digital legal startups want to play in the current judicial system, and how do they reduce the caseload of courts? And open to all three of you, whoever wants to take it, or if you all want to take it one by one.
I think, I mean, maybe I can quickly start. I think what we've seen is not so much tech reducing caseload of courts as much as resolving all the disputes outside courts. I think that's a good starting point. Over time, as you see this private market for dispute resolution really bloom and evolve, I think that it's almost a secondary effect, right? As people more and more, they see startups like really resolving disputes outside courts and say, I don't want to file in the courts, I'll go here and resolve. And that's how over time caseload will reduce. And from a more direct perspective, I think, I mean, it's clear with the e-courts committee is taking a very sort of an exciting view of how tech can really make processes more efficient, really reimagining how justice is delivered, right? Like, I think we hear this thing of justice as a service, which is an interesting way of looking at things. So I think, yeah, I mean, on both outside the courts and within courts, I think you starting to see tech improve it. At least, yeah. That's my point of view.
Aman, Kirtana, do you want to add, or we can take maybe a couple more questions?
I think Tariq covered most of it. And I think that the solutions are also in terms of with those solutions, how do we increase access for those who are usually on the margins, right? Or who are excluded as well. So I think even there is a lot of role and potential to play there.
That makes sense. I think one question that came in that I think Pallavi had shared with us is, someone is asking, they don't have a legal background. What's the best way to get started in this space? Maybe I'll quickly just plug all of us here. Keep watching the CIL handles, keep watching the CIL website, keep watching the ONI space. And also there's some fantastic resources available on Agami's pages as well. Anything specific else that you all want to point out, open to you, but I just wanted to quickly plug in all of this.
I actually can plug in if there's anyone in the audience who's exploring an idea. We have 7 really excellent mentors who give time every Thursday for one of our initiatives called No Change Maker Left Behind. It is for people with an idea for in the legal tech space or the social justice space, anything that intersects with the law. And it has no high entry barrier or anything for an application. So I shared the link, I can share it again. So if you have an idea that you're exploring and you want to connect with mentors in the field, please check out No Change Maker Left Behind.
Thanks, Kirtana. I think one more question that has come in. Sure, Hiren, I mean, you could share the story. We may not be able to take it up on the panel, but I think we're also at time here. So quickly, just want to thank all of you for being here and taking time and sharing these wonderful insights. If there's anything in closing that you all want to add, if not, then we can pass it back to Pallavi.
Well, thanks,
Right.
No, I mean, it's been a very exciting conversation, and we're only sort of, I mean, 2 years from now, I think, it will be in a very, very sort of in a slightly more cutting edge space. We are at the early stages of the evolution of our legal tech platforms in India. I think it's a very exciting time to just be associated with it. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks again, Tariq, Kirtana, and Aman. Thank you so much for being here. If you are, I think I would request everyone to stay on because we do have a short presentation on the program side of it. Thank you, panelists, for joining us. If you all want more information, you can go to the CIL website. And with that, I'll just pass it back to Pallavi. Over to you.
Thank you, Shailaja, and thank you all our panelists. This was really, really interesting conversation. And Tariq, I really like that statement. Pandemic was such an unscheduled pilot. I think indeed it was a pilot for not just one sector, but all. And Kirtana, you beautifully said no change maker should be left behind. And I think that's what exactly we want to do here, from idea to existing entrepreneurs and enterprises. We really want to support them in whatever way possible, especially from all these 3 domains: legal, tech, civic tech and property rights tech. And Aman, really intriguing that you didn't really want to wait till the time your product was fully made. Actually, that's exactly what we also tell our entrepreneurs, and that's the spirit. Really moved by the story that you shared. Thank you once again, and we'll get back to you. And now it's time for us to share more details on the program. The application invite is on, and we invite you to apply for the program. If I'm allowed to share my screen. Yeah. So this is a brief on the program, which is a joint initiative by ONI and CIIE Co. And it's called Citizen Innovation Lab. And as Shailaja rightly mentioned, that at the core of all these interventions, we really want to have citizens there, whether we talk about civic tech, property rights tech, or legal tech. We are also discovering and inventing new ways of dealing with gaps and challenges and opportunities that we see around. And this initiative, which is a one-year initiative, is going to help all those entrepreneurs, aspiring and existing entrepreneurs who want to make a mark here, who want to solve these problems. These may be small in nature, these may be at a very, very idea stage at the moment, but we will be happy to support in whichever way possible. So this is a joint initiative by ONI, Omidyar Network, and CIIE Co. Omidyar has been working in the domain of these three sectors for long, and CIIE Co has been in the space of building entrepreneurs and supporting fearless entrepreneurs for a long time. And this partnership brings in the program, which they've called Citizen Innovation Lab, especially focusing on these three domains, civic tech, property rights tech, and civil and legal tech. And why we really want to focus on these sectors is that we feel that there is inadequate knowledge and mentorship that exists in the ecosystem at the moment. And this is a gap that we would want to contribute to in building entrepreneurs, in doing those landscape studies that our Insights team is doing, in helping those students, researchers, fellows to convert and translate their ideas and projects into ventures, which may have a lot of innovation and impact at the end of the tunnel. Also, there is sparse effort to evangelize this ecosystem and build sustainable partnerships. As a part of this program, we are also building partnerships across the country, especially keeping in mind those universities, tech, domain specific, and otherwise incubators, e-cells, who would have a good reach to these aspiring entrepreneurs as well as existing entrepreneurs. I'll also talk about the two tracks that we would take care of as a part of this program. But before that, and also one important thing, which is the catalytic capital for the early stage startups. This catalytic capital, combined with hand-holding and effort as a part of incubation or acceleration, should bring in a good amount of orbit change for these entrepreneurs and enterprises. And that's our hope and expectations from the program. Again, focusing on these three pillars being competencies. So building competencies across the spectrum of the audience, which would include academic institutions, entrepreneurs, mentors, potential investors, bringing them all close to one platform, on one platform. Second is collaboration, where we really want all these energies to be built together, leveraging these energies in favor of these enterprises and entrepreneurs, and in turn, the whole ecosystem, and infusing that catalytic capital so that the innovative ideas and prototypes could really reach the next stage. So the growth stage enterprises to experience that orbit change in as less time as possible and in the most effective way as possible. So the program objectives, as discussed, would include evangelizing, supporting early stage startups from idea to revenue stage, and also catalyzing the ecosystem in favor of these three domains. Again, the reason being that these three domains see very less startup intervention. There are organizations, there are research bodies, there are non-government bodies that have been working for long. And also, as the panel rightly indicated, that COVID has changed a lot for us, lot for better. So this is an opportunity for all of us to build on the whole ecosystem around these three sectors afresh. The core components of this whole program, as we envisage it, one is building insights, which is building those problem banks, which would be around these three domains. Second is incubation. This is mainly to support all those idea to pre-prototype, prototype stage enterprises and entrepreneurs who may not be registered so far, which doesn't matter, but they have ideas, they have projects, and they have the potential to create or convert these into ventures. We'll be happy to support them with mentoring, workshops, etc. that I'm going to talk about. And also along with that, we will have grants to be given so that they can really take that to the market, pilot it, and get the necessary results in time. Next is acceleration. This is mainly focused on the enterprises that exist, the early stage, but exist there in the market, and either looking at issues or business model intervention, or anything to do with taking these businesses to the next level in terms of orbit change. Again, besides other things, there is seed funding for these enterprises, besides mentoring, networking, market connect, etc. So again, the panel did discuss this very efficiently, especially the legal part of it. We're also looking at the civic and property right tech part of it, wherein we would encourage all of you and people in the network who really want to get into this ecosystem and look at problems differently, look at solutions differently, think beyond and think besides what already exists, make use of the opportunities that exist at this moment, and the energy wave also post-COVID that we see, or in COVID times that we see, where a lot of tech adoption is already happening. The customer perspective is changing, the habits are changing. There is so much of evolution that we see in the ecosystem. So can we use this momentum in favor of building new technologies, again, at the core of it, which would be obviously the citizens and entrepreneurs. So as a part of talking more about the program, again, as I mentioned, these are the three sectors that we are looking at, and these are the two tracks that we are looking at: incubation and acceleration. Incubation, which is primarily going to focus on enterprises and entrepreneurs who are at an idea to prototype stage, primarily coming from maybe university campuses or the fellows that are there working on urban architecture, law, wherever, or PhDs that would want to be converted and are waiting to be translated into something material on the ground. We'll be happy to support all those idea to prototype stage enterprises here. You may not be required to be registered already. We'll be happy to support you in getting your firms registered after an intervention, which will help you chisel your business model, reach to a stage where you feel more confident about taking this to the market. Acceleration stage is primarily for post-prototype to revenue stage enterprises. Again, getting registered pre-hand may not be a prerequisite. You can get registered immediately before the program. Here again, the idea is to help you with a more robust business financial model, look at problems, solving those problems, helping you with all necessary interventions that should help you see that orbit change from A to B, and so on. The offerings as part of track A, which is incubation from idea to prototype stage, we will have a lot of workshops conducted, which may also include design thinking, so that you can look at the problem, you can look at the business model, you can look at the whole issue from the customer's perspective, build empathy. Boot camps that should again help you build the basic building blocks of business and business model. We'll help you with mentoring clinics and boot camps. We'll help you with network and funding support. Primarily here we have grants up to 3 lakhs for all the worthy ideas and prototypes that we will get as a part of applications for this program. We also want to look at the portfolio beyond the grant. So grant is not going to be the end of the whole journey. In fact, the journey should ideally begin from there. We look at how you again evolve into a serious business model, serious business that's helping and having impact in the domains that you are targeting. And of course, the market connects and visibility go hand in hand. As part of eligibility criteria, any student, aspiring entrepreneur, research fellow, research scholar, a practitioner, a faculty who really has that idea, and you are confident about it, that this idea can change something on the ground, talking about these 3 domains specifically, we'll be happy to support you through all our interventions as a part of incubation program. Of course, we're solving these problems in these 3 domains: civic, property rights, legal tech. The civic is a very, very wide domain and may have multiple issues and challenges and opportunities that we can look at, whereas property rights, again, is now being seen in the new light. Legal tech, we just heard from our panel, has great potential, especially at this time when market looks really ripe and ready for any change and transformation from the customer side, from the tech side, from entrepreneur side, and from the ecosystem side. The appetite is really great, and we can make use of this time to solve bigger problems with a focused effort. This application could come for incubation, could come from an idea to prototype stage. And of course, there should be commitment to convert this into a for-profit business venture. That's the prerequisite to be a part of this program. This is how the timeline should look like. It's almost a 1-year program. We will be able to help you with the candidature. The cohort will be announced sometime in September. We are accepting applications till 31st of August through our application portal. From October to January, we will have all the engagements that will help you chisel your business model, arrive at a business model which would look ready to go to the market. Beyond which we'll have investment committees where grants would be announced, and therefore, and thereafter there will be portfolio management that would start for you. Towards the end of the whole year, we will also look at bringing all people together as a part of an annual convention, besides doing the regular roundtables in between, because the objective is also to bring about all these partners together and see how the cross learning and cross-pollination happens across. As a part of the second track, B track, which is acceleration, the offerings are going to be a little different because here the enterprises are relatively more mature. These are beyond idea and beyond prototype stage. And we really want to look at enterprises who may or may not be registered though, but at an MVP or early traction or even revenue stage, and looking for assistance in further chiseling of business model, market connects, networking, looking at the problem statements in a more focused way, having a more focused intervention, maybe having catalytic capital to support, to be able to move to the next level and experience orbit change. And last but not the least, once the funding is received, we also plan how this funding is utilized so that the maximum optimized way of utilization of these funds could be possible through portfolio management and further mentoring support. Again, this is the timeline of acceleration. We are accepting applications till 31st of August. September is the time when we will help you understand, help you know you are a part of this program. October till January, we do basic groundwork with you to help you put in front of an investment committee so that you can represent your business model in a more effective way, helping you with some boot camps and pre-prep for investment committees. And the funding gets announced in February, which is going to be up to 15 lakh for each enterprise, and beyond which there is going to be portfolio management and also assistance on follow-on funding and networking and seeing how this orbit change is possible for you. Helping you with a few links here that will help you know more about the program. Please feel free to reach out to us, our team, in case you have any doubts, in case you have any queries. Please do visit this website. This will have application as part of 2 tracks, incubation, acceleration. Please check whether you are a better fit for incubation or a better fit for acceleration, depending on the stage you come from. We also have a section there that will help you with the frequently asked questions. But for more, please feel free to join the WhatsApp group and also to write back to us, and we'll be happy to support and assist you. I'll be happy to take questions if we have any at this moment. In case we have any questions pertaining to the program, how the program is going to be, on the eligibility, on the offerings, Please feel free to ask your questions, put it in the comment section. Great. If you don't have any questions, then I think that's all we have for today. We've done this panel discussion today as a part of our dialogue series that will continue for another 1 month. Today, the focus was on legal tech. Similarly, we're going to have more panel discussions on other domains, which is civic tech and also property rights tech. And we'll have another one, which is going to be almost for all these sectors put together. We'll keep you posted. Please follow us for more information. And in case you have any questions pertaining to the program, your participation in the program, your inputs, recommendations, suggestions, we'll be happy to hear from you. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Shailaja, for helping us with this panel. Thank you, entrepreneurs, and thank you, ONI, to be a part of this. This was really interesting. And I'm sure all our audience would have got benefited by it. Thank you once again. Thank you. Take care. Good evening.